We're going to be solving quadratic equations using factoring in this section. I'm going to show you a few different ways to do that. The first way we're going to do it is we're going to use the zero product property in order to find out the solutions for this equation. Now if you notice, this equation has two binomials that equal 0. Well, the zero product property tells us that if you multiply anything times 0, your answer is 0, which we already knew that, but it's helpful to know when we're trying to solve this. That means this value times this value equals 0. That means one of these two values, if not both, need to equal 0, so that the entire product is 0. So in that case, what we're going to do is we're going to set this binomial equal to 0, and then we're going to set the second binomial equal to 0 and find out what each one of these variables would equal. So in this case, 4m plus 1 equals 0. We get 4m equals negative 1 divided by 4. We get m equals negative 1/4. And the equation that I wrote in red, m minus 2 equals 0. When we add 2 to both sides, we get m equals 2. So our solutions for this equation can be negative 1/4 or 2. If we plugged in negative 1/4 for m, we would get a 0 here, multiplied by negative 2 and 1/4, which would equal 0. And if we plugged a 2 in, we would get 9 times 0, which would still give us 0 as an answer. So we have two solutions. So you would write this way. M equals negative 1/4 and 2. Our second example, we're going to solve the quadratic equation by factoring first. So what we're really going to do is we're going to factor it into two binomials, just like the first example we had. We started with two binomials. Now we're going to factor our trinomial into two binomials. And we've done this before. We set up two binomials. And our first term, our first times first, is going to be x times x. And then our last term, we need to look for factors that give us a product of 15 that have a sum of 8. So our factors of 15 are 15 and 1 and 3 and 5. Well, 3 and 5 give us a sum of 8. So these are the numbers we're going to use here. And so now this is factored. Once we've factored it, we can solve the equation. So since this all equals 0, one of these two have to equal 0, if not both. So we solve x plus 3 equals 0, and we'll solve x plus 5 equals 0. So when we solve this out, we get x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 5. So we have two answers, x equals negative 3 and negative 5. Our third example, we're going to find the solutions of this quadratic equation. We need to write this in standard form first. There are a few steps to this problem. So if I was you, I would write it down, take some time to make sure you understand every step that we're doing here. Okay, if you notice this one, we have 4x squared minus 21x equals 18. The other ones have equaled 0. We can make this look that same way just by bringing the 18 over to the left side and leaving a 0 on the right. So that would give us 4x squared minus 21x minus 18 equals 0. Now that's in standard form. Now from here, we need to factor. We need to factor the trinomial into two binomials. There is no common term, there's no greatest common factor from the monomial, so we can't factor anything out. So we're going to have to find our product of A and C, and that product is negative 72. And we need to look for a set of factors to give us negative 72 that have a sum of negative 21. And those the two factors that work for that are 3 times negative 24. So 3 times negative 24 equals negative 72, and 3 plus negative 24 gives us negative 21. So these are the two we're going to use. So what we do is we rewrite it, and we're going to break up negative 21x to plus 3x and minus 24x minus 18 equals 0. So all we did here so far is we put it in standard form, and then we separated the negative 21x to 3x minus 24x. These two are the same. Okay, now we can group. We'll change this here to plus negative 24x. We'll group that with a plus sign here. So what we have is we're going to look for greatest common factor in our first binomial. Oh, this doesn't go there. This goes right there. Look for a greatest common factor in our first binomial and a greatest common factor in our second binomial, and we'll complete the factoring process. So the first one, we have 4x squared plus 3x. They both share a term of x. And then we have 4x plus 3 left, plus negative, this is a negative 24x, minus 18. We can factor out a negative 6. Factor out a negative 6, and we're left with 4x plus 3 equals 0. Almost done with the factoring. We have a 4x plus 3 as a common factor, times, once these are gone, we have x plus negative 6, or x minus 6, all equals 0. Now we have two binomials that equal 0. We need to set them both to equal 0 so that we can find the solution. And we have 4x plus 3 equals 0, and x minus 6 equals 0. Well, 4x minus 3, we'd subtract 3 from both sides, and we'd be left with 4x equals negative 3. Divide by 4, and we'd be left with x equals negative 3/4. And for this side, we add 6 to both sides, and our solution would be x equals 6.
Hello?